So we want to look at what are the ways to facilitate voting for people in custody, regardless of if it's a jail or if it's a prison. So very exciting research happening by my colleague at the Sentencing Project, who is looking at what are the best ways to guarantee ballot access in secure facilities from Maine to DC. Given the laws here, Maine, people could always vote in Maine. The Constitution there never disenfranchised people, even those in prison with very serious felony offenses from voting. The same is true in Vermont. Puerto Rico expanded the franchise to people sentenced to prison in the early 1980s. In DC, the DC Council expanded the franchise, ended felony disenfranchisement in 2020. So we're looking at, well, what are ways to facilitate voting for people in secure facilities? Is it through automatic mail in ballots? Is it through specific practices that jail administrators or prison administrators have in place? Is it through specific practices that local election officials have in place? And then I think given the recent wins, the recent voting rights expansions in Minnesota in New Mexico, is really working to document, well, what are the best practices to guarantee ballot access for newly eligible voters given these changes that have happened over the last couple of years. So with the changes in Minnesota and New Mexico this year, I know there's a lot of attention to how can we get people on the voter rolls? What are the best practices at doing that to facilitate that voter engagement, voter registration? And so I'm really excited to be participating in coalitions that are working at taking that on, and then seeing like what does success look like in guaranteeing that newly eligible voters are registering and that they're participating in upcoming election cycles. And I think we're going to get a chance to look at that, learn lessons, and figure out how to build that out so that in other states that will adopt voting expansions in the next year, 3 years, 5 years, what are best practices we can be recommending in those states around post-win ballot access strategies as well.